In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to paint one of my favorite African birds, a lilac-breasted roller. These little guys are so fun. The colors are insane, and they're just so much fun to paint. Now, before we get started, this is a compressed mini version of the full tutorial that can be found inside my membership, the Wildlife Painting Academy. If you want the full lesson in real time, completely start to finish, with my voice walking you through every moment of every decision in your painting, then you're going to love this tutorial. And it is now available inside the Wildlife Painting Academy. Plus, there's over 50 other tutorials. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, go check it out in the link of this video. All right, let's get started. So like usual, I'm working with oil paint, but you can definitely get the same effect with acrylics as well, though I highly recommend working with a slow drying medium. So the colors that I'm going to be using today are going to be ivory black, burnt umber, titanium white, burnt sienna, Prussian blue, sap green, cobalt violet hue, and yellow ochre. I'm also going to be working with my current favorite oil painting medium, Galkyd Gel by the brand Gamvar. And for brushes, I'm going to be using a collection of filbert brushes, round brushes, and a beautiful little script brush that's going to be great for those details. But usually I just like to keep a range of sizes. Nothing too special, nothing too expensive here. So here I'm starting off with my canvas that I've transferred my sketch to, and I'm going in with my paint and I'm starting to map out my darkest areas first. I like to do this with as large a brush as possible to make sure that I'm not getting bogged down in those details too early, and just to make sure that I can progress as quickly as possible. For the background here, I wanted to go with a nice blurred sort of effect that's really going to bring the focus to our little lilac rested roller here without distracting from it too much. So I want to have it in an environment, but I don't want it to distract from our cute little bird here. So I'm starting off by just kind of blocking in all these vague shapes that are going to be different things in the background, and then I'm going to blur them out so that I have that nice soft blend. Again, we're placing our little guy here in the environment, but nothing that's going to distract away from this little dazzler. So now that I have my background in, I'm going to start to lay in the rest of the colors. So these little guys have the coolest colored feathers. I've seen them so many times in person, and they're just wild. I absolutely love painting them. So I'm starting off here with each sort of color family, blocking in the darkest colors first. So now working with these blue feathers here, I'm starting with my darkest blue, and then I'm moving through to my lighter colors. When I'm working on my underpainting, which is what I'm doing right now, I'm not going for any detail. All I'm going for here is blocking things in, really focusing on building up a solid range of values, because that's going to help to translate that 3D shape of whatever you're painting. In this case, it's a beautiful little lilac-breasted roller. So now moving through the different colors here, there's that kind of orangey, rusty cheek patch. There's some yellowy feathers happening around the head. So I'm just moving through the different areas here with my different colors of paint and starting to build up that first pass of those feathers. So we want to have this little guy sitting on a nice little branch, but I don't want to distract again too much from our birds. So we're keeping things nice and simple here, going with a few simple leaves, using a beautiful sap green here that is just the perfect color for any sort of foliage. And now I'm going through and I just want to kind of take that rough edge off any of our paint that we currently have on our underpainting. So here I'm just grabbing a dry brush and just lightly blending things out. So now it's time for the fun part, to start building up detail. First, I set my painting aside for a few days so it could dry completely, just so that I'm not making a muddy mess of my underpainting. And now I'm going through with some smaller brushes and I'm starting to build up that gorgeous feather texture here. So feathers are definitely a tricky subject because they each have a different type of shape to them depending on where they are on that bird's body. So for instance, the ones on the sort of throat of our little roller here can almost look more like fur or hair. So I'm kind of treating it that way. Whereas some of the feathers in that sort of underbelly area where you see a lot of those blue feathers, you are going to have more of that traditional feather pattern and it tends to be pretty downy. So I'm going to go with sort of almost a scale-like feather pattern here that's nice and soft to be able to show off that lovely feather pattern. So now I'm moving through the rest of the body here, just starting to build up that first pass of the feather texture. And again, some of these areas here almost look kind of more like fur rather than feathers. So I'm paying attention to that and making sure that I am, again, paying close attention to my reference photo so that I can get those feather textures as accurate as possible. And now adding just a little bit more detail to that foliage on our little stick there. I don't want to add too much because our little roller here is going to be our star and I don't want to distract from it too much. So now is the fun part, glazing. I set my painting aside for a few days so it was completely dry, and now is where you are completely going to see something transformational happen in your painting. I'm going to be mixing some different transparent pigments here with my painting medium, and I'm doing this light wash over my entire painting here to give everything a beautiful crystalline transparent wash of color. And this is going to be such a useful tactic to be able to really amp up those colors. You can do some beautiful color shifts. You can really just add that saturation that I was looking for here, and all without actually affecting your layers below. So you can add all this beautiful color in the later phases of your painting, like I'm doing here through glazing, without actually covering up any of your hard work when you were building up that 3D structure and form of our little critter here and building up all that gorgeous texture and detail. And now, once my glaze layer is all sort of locked in, I like to do my final pass of details into that wet glaze layer. Find it just looks a little bit more natural. So now I'm taking the opportunity to grab some of my teeny tiniest little brushes, and I am going through wherever I need there to be an extra little pop, a little sparkle, a little bit more detail, whatever you want. Now is your chance. And I love this step because it just adds, it's that little icing on the cake. We've spent so much time building up our underpainting, making sure we're paying very close attention to those values and building up that 3D form. Then we got to layer in all of that juicy texture and detail. And then we were able to have all of that fun with our glazes, really amp up those colors, add some subtle color shifts. And now it's that final little juicy bit where you get to add that final sparkle. I find this stage is just so satisfying. So I love teaching it because it's so fun. All right, well, that brings us to the end of this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and now you're super excited to go paint your own lilac-breasted roller like this little cutie. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.